Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Yelena and I am the owner of blog Hometown Girl and Curls. Of course I don't have my curls today. I'm wearing my twist because I am about to go on vacation next week. No, week after next. I wish next week, but week after next with my husband. And so I am just gonna go straight into the video, but I wanted to let you know that this is part 4 of my trauma to triumph series. And so what I'm going to do is just clean my face because today I did a lot of running errands and it was super hot and I sweated a lot while I was out. And so I'm just going to do my nighttime routine and then include the e.l.f. Gentle Peeling Exfoliant. There you go. And I use this a lot for exfoliating my face and help with the hyperpigmentation that I had a lot around my face. But anyway, before getting started, I just want to remind you guys to, of course, like, comment, subscribe, share. Sharing is caring. So please share if you like. And also, the video from last week, part 3, will be available somewhere up here. And so, let's go ahead and get started. So, the last time we were here was when I was talking about having to testify against my father in court. And we weren't asked to testify. That's what I said last time in the video. We were summoned to testify. So we had to testify. Had no choice. And so my dad was sentenced to 15 years in prison and he's had to serve 10 years of that. So back to today. My dad, of course, was in prison, and my dad was actually in prison when my parents actually got a divorce. So they separated in 1995, and then in 96 was when my parents actually got a divorce. So during this time, my mom, of course, wanted nothing to do with him at all. Can't blame her. And so, if it was up to her, she would not have taken us to visitation to go see my dad in prison. She probably wouldn't even want us to communicate with my dad while he was in prison. But the judge basically gave her a suggestion to, take us to visitation. I'm sorry, something's in my eye. It's burning a little bit. Anyway, wipe my face with my eye a little bit. Anyway, when my dad was in prison, he spent a lot of his time just being to himself for the most part. But he was not, trying to go to church service, which was very big, in their prison that he was at. And just to give you a background, when it came to church life with my parents, my mom was very much in the church, and mostly because of my grandmother. So she was constantly in the church, very much involved, very much active. And my dad was in the church as well. But once they actually got married and were on their own, they basically weren't going to church. Especially when we moved here. So when we moved here, I vaguely remember, going to service every once in a while, but it definitely wasn't very often. So going back to my dad, he spent a lot of his time in prison gambling. And so it took encouragement from some of the prisoners to encourage him to attend church services. Particularly one person by the name of Claude. And just remember the name Claude because that would come up another time in the next video. But anyway, my dad started attending the church services, and as he was attending the church service, he really realized to himself all the things that he did, and that he wanted to change his life, and he ended up rededicating his life to God. And when he rededicated his life to God, he basically also was saying that, God, I want my family back. I want to have my wife back. I want my children, there. I want us to be a family again. And during this time when my dad was rededicated his life to God, of course, it's also during the time when my mama took us to go visit him. And over time, she noticed a huge change in my dad. When I tell you that my dad has done a complete 180 once he gave his life back to God. Even to this day, like, people that know his story are just in shock into thinking that was the man that my dad used to be, because my dad is so completely different. So it was really hard for some people to even imagine him, doing the things that he did to us. I mean, that's how much he had completely changed, thanks to God. But anyway, my mom saw a huge change in him, and she was wondering, like, wow, okay, what's going on here? Like, he's, praying, during our visitation. He's talking about God a lot, talking about the Word of God a lot. It was just like mind-boggling for my mom to actually see this huge change in him. And the more that she began taking us to visitations, well, we didn't realize that they were having conversations about their marriage, what went wrong into their marriage, why, things turned out the way they did. And my dad was trying to win over my mother. And of course, we had no idea what was going on. I mean, I was in, like, elementary school, going into middle school, and my brother was in elementary school. So of course we had no clue what was going on. Anywho, my dad was working to show my mom that he had changed, that he is a changed man, that he is a different man. And my mom had no intentions of getting back together with my father. None. She was just like, I'm not going back to all that stuff I went through, the abuse, the cheating. I'm not going back to it. But the more that she saw my dad and realized that, wait, this is the real deal. He's just not saying it. It's really showing that he's changed. And so my mom started to research this for my father. And just to give you, a little bit of my mom, during that time, she was actually dating a man during this whole time. After she had gotten divorced, she started dating a man. Well, okay, let me be clear. She actually had an affair with him late into my parents' marriage, and then she started dating him once the divorce got final. But she was dating him. However, it was just something going on with my dad, and that she just could not believe, and it was starting to change the way that she thought about him. And she started having feelings for him again. And so, before we know it, it's 1999, and my parents are back together. I'm just like, wow, I had no idea that y'all were even talking about getting back together. And just to let you know, I am going to give you a little down about the actual conversation that they had with me and my brother. But they had gotten back together in 99 and decided to get remarried. They actually had a conversation with me and my brother during that time. And when they revealed to us that they were getting back together, they were getting remarried, I'm gonna speak for myself. I was confused. I had to look like, okay, what happened? I was just confused on that time. I did not know how to process this. And during this time, my parents had not been together since 95. That's 4 years. And I had grown to being adjusted to life of having divorced parents. I was accustomed to it. I ended up adjusting, and I was used to it. So when my parents came to me and my brother and said they were getting remarried, I was confused, and it was a lot to process because I had no idea that they were even communicating about getting back together, let alone getting remarried at that. But as someone who was like 12, 13 years old at this time, I had no idea how to express that. I had no idea how to even say how I was feeling during that time. But that's exactly how I felt, and I just did not know how to actually say it. But anyway, 99, my parents got back together. They got remarried, and the minister that married them was also, I believe, check my notes because it's loud. The minister that actually married them was actually doing the church services for the inmates at the prison that my dad was in. But anyway, my mom ended up moving back to Louisiana, me, my mom, and my brother. And we moved back because my mom was trying to go back to school. And of course, with her going back to school and me and my brother being younger, she just felt that it was right and best for us to move back to Louisiana. And we ended up living with my grandparents and my mom's parents while she was in school and while she was working. So I was in the 7th grade when this happened. We ended up moving back. So my parents ended up getting married before we actually moved, just to like clarify that with you guys. But anyway, my mom graduated a few years later. I was in the 9th grade when she graduated and got her bachelor's degree. And so once I got into the 10th grade, we actually moved back to Georgia. And we moved back to Georgia, this was like 2002. And my dad was actually about to be released. So he could have actually been released a couple of years before he originally got released. But he was told that he had to take anger management and stress management classes before he was released. And so he ended up taking those, which took about, I believe, 8 weeks. That's what my dad told me. 8 weeks. And so but when those 8 weeks went up, my dad was able to be released from prison. But before he was released from prison, he was able to reach out to this man named Richard. And Richard is a man that he used to work for as a truck driver before he ended up being in prison. So he ended up reaching out to Richard saying that, hey, explained the whole situation, and that, he had been in prison and he was going to be released and he was just looking for some new work. And so the guy Richard actually happened to be CEO of a trucking company during that time. So Richard, knowing my dad as a hardworking man, good, awesome truck driver that he is, decided to take him on and let him work for him in his company that he is the CEO of. So it's just crazy how God works when it comes to, my parents getting back together. When it came to my dad, rededicating his life back to God. When it came to my dad doing a complete 180 with his life and his personality, his character. It's crazy how God works when it comes to him being able to work immediately after he got released. I'm saying, like, he got released and the next day he was off driving trucks. And so, things were great when it came to that. And we ended up being this big old happy family again. Oh, so we thought. And I'm actually going to stop right here because there's a whole another part that I have to talk to you about. Because even though my parents were able to reconcile and restore their relationship, their marriage, there was a disconnect between me, my brother, and my dad. And that is something I'm going to explain to you guys in part 5 of this testimony. This is going to be the actual last part of this series. And I'm going to stop right here and just recap, what happened. And it's that my dad, being in prison, he ended up rededicating his life back to God. And basically, worked and prayed to God to bring his family back. My parents ended up getting remarried in 99 after being separated in 95. My mom moved back to Louisiana where she ended up getting a bachelor's degree. Moved back here, and my dad was released and able to get a job immediately into trucking, which is what he used to do before he was locked up. And that is actually the whole video. I just wanted to just share that with you all, and I'm so excited about part 5, y'all. Like, I'm really, really stoked about part 5 because y'all really don't know how God really worked until y'all hear part 5. Like, part 4 is really good, but part 5 is okay. So just letting you guys know, if y'all really want to see God show out and do his thing, y'all gotta watch part 5, which will be the next Sunday before I go on vacation. So I love y'all, and I pray that y'all have a great remainder of your week, and be blessed.